A Friend of Wax, Chapter 1, The Last Supper, or Pilot, Part 1. "Do you think your life could be better?" said the smiling candle seller. Something about these words deeply resonated with Haru. She was looking at the candles at the stall. Some of them were lit, making the stall the only part of the hospital corridor illuminated by something else than the moon. The candles were a bright and frivolous decoration of an otherwise dreary building. Standing there and staring into the flickering flames and melting wax, Haru reflected on her life. Sure, it wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best either. Haru had no real perspective on her life. Each time she had an idea, a dream, it was always crushed. Her heart defect made her give up skating. Her disillusionment with the nature of her condition made her give up medicine. She had no idea if she had time to learn drawing, and was on a good way to give up on that as well. She was losing the idea of how she would want her life to look like. And now she was waiting for a surgery supposed to prolong her life, but also likely to kill her. Haru looked at the smiling candle seller, then at his candles, and finally at the tips of her slippers. "Yes," said Haru. "It could definitely be better. I just wish I had more time." "And what if I told you I can give you more time?" asked the candle seller. Haru looked at the candle seller with a disbelieving look and shook her head from side to side. "Who are you, a divine surgeon?" said Haru. "What can you do for me?" "Take a look at my candles," said the candle seller. Haru looked around the stall. She once again found herself mesmerized in a riot of colors. There was, however, something strange about them. All the unlit candles were colored and all the lit candles were completely white. "All of these colorful candles are waiting to find a friend," said the candle seller. "I can find a friend for you too, one with whom you shall live a long life, in the good and in the bad, one with whom you'll enrich each other's lives." Haru simply laughed at the idea. "Yeah, right, a long life," said Haru. "It'd indeed be lovely. Just so you know, I already have a friend and everything looks like I won't be in her life for much longer." "But you would like to live and find a purpose, don't you?" asked the candle seller. Haru went silent and whispered, "Yes." "So if I could give you a longer life, would you take it?" asked the candle seller. "Yes," said Haru through tears, dominated by her fear of the next day. The smiling candle seller opened a hot pot of melted wax and sunk a small copper skillet-like spoon in it. He stirred the contents of the pot, took out a small portion of the wax, and spilled it into a little mound. It cooled down, hardened, and took a bluish color. "Isn't it beautiful?" asked the candle seller. "It looks almost like a teeny tiny ice ring." Haru took the wax mound into her hand. "What is this?" she asked the candle seller. "If you think your life is ending, then eat this." Haru almost jumped back from disgust. "Eat? Wax?" Haru almost shouted. "How? Why would I?" "Don't worry, it actually tastes really sweet," said the candle seller. "Besides, don't they say that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger?" Haru glanced at the wax mound and considered the candle seller's offer. "What's it going to cost me?" Haru asked. "Don't worry about that," said the candle seller. "There's no greater reward for me than a happy customer." Haru returned to her bed, but she still couldn't sleep. She couldn't stop thinking about her surgery, about how, despite being high risk, it was necessary for her. She felt trapped between a rock and a hard place, but most importantly, she felt scared, scared of her life being over before it really started for good, scared of running out of time, scared of death. Haru took her phone and read the last message she got. It was from her friend Ichiko. "Everything is going to be great. Stay strong. I believe in your heart." Haru completely lost herself in tears. She found herself lucky to be alone in the room, because for sure she would wake her neighbor up with her cry. Her tear-ridden eyes focused on the wax mount on her cabinet. Maybe she was desperate. Maybe she thought she had nothing to lose. Whatever might have been the reason, Haru put the wax in her mouth and swallowed it. She felt the wax melting around her throat and filling her tongue with the taste of honey. She didn't even notice when sleep knocked her out. Haru found it nonsensical that the doctors woke her up in the morning. After all, they only did it to put her under anesthetic. The strange gas from her mask was the last thing Haru smelled. A while later, she found herself blind and unable to move. She was scared and anxious. What happened? Was the surgery a success? Was she dead? Was she simply half unconscious? What was going on? From the surrounding darkness, she heard the voice of the candle seller. "You've met with an unfortunate fate, haven't you?" In that state, Haru has spent more time than she could remember. After a long time, she felt as if she had spent more time like that than as a conscious person able to move. In complete darkness and without being able to say a single word. And yet, there was a strange feeling in her mind, as if she was waiting for somebody. After what felt like an eternity, Haru felt herself being lifted and taken somewhere. The walk was dragging on, but compared to the rest of her new life, it felt like a blink of an eye. Then she felt herself being put on something cold, and then warmth, and melting, and the urge to sleep. Suddenly, Haru noticed something strange. She actually could see again, or something like that. Everything was smudgy and vague and distorted, as if Haru was looking at the world through a thick layer of fog. But she could see again, that was for sure. Then Haru noticed that she could hear again, although she couldn't understand what the sounds were. She heard every sound as if the buzzing of cicadas was distorting them. But at least she could hear again. Haru also noticed that she could finally move her body, but there was one problem. Why was it moving by itself, with no intention from Haru? Why was she not in control? And what was it doing? And why did it feel so inexplicably strange and foreign? Throughout the day, Haru could see better and better. She started to understand her surroundings. It seemed she was at some kind of school. There was some kind of lesson going on. Her body was making notes, but it was writing considerably slowly. She could make out individual sounds. She could hear words, but every word sounded otherworldly, and no writing she could see was decipherable. Haru heard the teacher talking to her body. She heard it responding with an alien voice, too deep, too sharp, too creaky. And then she heard the teacher respond with a sigh of disappointment and more incomprehensible words. At this point, Haru was actually terrified of what was going on around her. When her body was returning from school, she could hear some students shouting and laughing at it. Once again, she couldn't understand any words, but she could feel their energy. It was not hatred, but ridicule and disdain. The words meant nothing for Haru, but their tone felt unbearable. She felt her body tripping on something and falling on its face. In an instant, the pain felt like the worst pain she felt in her life. Was it still her life? Was she living through someone else's life? The first thing Harry could read was a sign on a pharmacy her body was living. She then could understand more and more signs, billboards, and signposts, but she couldn't understand how. They were not at all familiar. Yet they were becoming less and less mystical for some reason. Soon, Haru's body returned to its home. It seemed to greet somebody, but no one answered. It threw a plastic bag it was carrying on its desk. It took out a box of pills. Haru tried reading the box in the short time she could and made out that the pills were made of acetylsalicylic acid. She recognized the substance from her previous life. It was a heart medication. She used to take it. Haru's body took a glass and started popping the pills into it one by one, and soon the glass was about half full. Then the body went to a cupboard and took out a can of beer. Something about her body's actions made Haru feel uneasy, even anxious. Just when the body poured the beer into the glass with the pills, with the fork it mixed the two things to create a turbid, quote-unquote, drink. When Haru's body raised the glass, it said the first bit of speech Haru understood. "In my next life, I want to become a Rani." Haru instinctively knew what her body was trying to do. Suddenly, the fear of the impending end returned to her, not only her end, but also of whoever she was observing. She had no idea if she could stop it, but she tried shouting, "No, don't do it!" Somehow, Haru's body seemed to hear her and turned around. It must have been sure it came from behind it. When it saw nobody, it felt really confused. Haru could hear its heavy breathing. "Who are you?" said the body with a boyish voice. "Where are you? How are you here?" The boy was rapidly twisting his head from one side to another. This all was giving Haru a headache, or something she could describe like that. "Hold up! Calm down!" shouted Haru. I'll try to explain everything." The boy froze and slowly moved his face back to the front. In his sight, the glass with the suicidal drink appeared again. "All right, first put the glass down," said Haru. The boy looked directly at the glass and slowly put it back on the table. He hesitated a little, but he let go of it and instead took hold of his arm. "Good," said Haru. "Now, let's talk."